and our schools aren't doing well.
Yeah.
Some school that you grew up with, going to, are not doing well.
Yeah.
And you were a police officer. So I know, where are you at with being a police officer in schools? Like, you have a unique perspective.
Yeah.
So where did you land on that? Hey, this is Henry Sanders back for another episode of Real Talk. We want to thank our sponsors at Park Bank. Thank you for investing in us. And I'm here with a good friend of mine. Actually, not just a good friend. Someone I grew up with on the north side of Madison. I know a lot of people don't know about the north side, but the north side is the best side of town. I just have to say it. She went to East High School, the best high school.
Yes.
Like, she's a Pergolder. So, Gloria, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
I'm just excited to have a North Sider out here on the show with me.
I know.
Kennedy Heights.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
That's when it all started. I grew up right down the street, Kennedy Heights, and this is when Kennedy Heights was a lot of white folks.
Yes.
And then a couple of us were sparkers around there, right?
Yeah. There wasn't many of us.
There was not
early
many,
on.
but we all stuck together.
Yes, we did.
We all stuck together.
Yeah.
Do you miss those days?
I do miss those days.
Yeah.
I do miss those days where it was, we had a lot of fun out
Playing
in the playgrounds.
Outside, yes.
And we had till late at night.
Yes.
It was just a lot of fun. I mean, and I really did enjoy the diversity of people who lived around us, our neighbors. Right?
Super diverse as far as like. Yeah, especially at that time, it was really diverse. Mm-hmm. We used to play all the time. And,
right.
And then you went to East High School.
I went to East High School.
Do you miss East?
I do miss. I love East. Yeah. East is home. My entire family went to East.
That's right.
So my son just graduated there.
What?
About 3 years ago. So
what's his name?
Isaiah.
What's up, Isaiah? East Side.
Yeah, East Side. So he was a proud Pergolder.
Okay.
But yeah. So I try to get back to East High School as much as I can.
And how's your family? Your brothers? How are they doing?
They're doing well. They're really just all here, close. My parents are here still, so we've never left Madison, which I thought I was going to leave.
Yeah.
At some point, and
so did I. I really thought I was going to leave, but family's here. And actually, when you travel the rest of the country, you realize that Madison's not a very bad. I mean, like, it's a decent place to live.
Madison is a great city.
Yeah, safe and.
Yeah,
all those different things.
It really is. I mean, we do have our challenges, but yeah, like you said, traveling across the country, the city of Madison is really a good place to raise your children.
How were your grades when you graduated from high school? Mine were awful. I think I graduated like a 1.78 or something like that from high school.
Mine was around that too. I mean, I really struggled in high school a lot.
Do you think? So you hear a lot of people of color grew up in high school, like all like Percy Brown said his GPA was like 1.78, etc. Do you think that was the schools, or like what do you think that is? Like, because when I went to college, I graduated pretty, I think 3.5. I graduated college. Like, so how do you think? What do you think that is in schools? That now look at you, now you're doing these wonderful things, but
yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think it is having teachers are really important, right, in our schools, and having teachers who are culturally competent and understand, have some cultural awareness around the students they're teaching, and being able to engage them in a certain way where I don't think that often happens. And it didn't happen back in our day, right? I think it has improved, but back in our day. Yeah,
we had Pike, and then we had Richard Scott.
Yeah.
And then what was the other guy's name? The vice president, you know what I'm talking about? Thomas? Was it Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Thomas, yeah.
That was really it, right?
Yeah.
I guess Juan was there. Yeah. Was Juan there when you were there?
Juan
Lopez.
He was he was school board. He was on the school board. Yeah. I think having teachers like that, like Mr. McPike and Mr. Thomas and Mr. Scott, I mean, they all really were a huge influence on me personally.
Yeah.
And in showing me a different way. My parents kept saying education was going to be my way out of poverty, but never did I know how to accomplish that. And they didn't, right? It was just like, okay, you need to get a high school degree and a diploma and graduate and go on to college. But it was really hard just figuring out that path there.
Yeah.
And but having teachers like that who actually establish that baseline for you, right, and saying that yes, this is achievable, that's what made it happen for me. Yeah. And I'm sure you and every one of us.
Pike and Richard Scott were really, big mentors of mine. And then you get older, you recognize how much influence they had on you at that time. Yeah. So they were just really strong black men that I needed in my life at that time.
Yes.
It was good. I really enjoyed my time at East. East built me to deal with a lot of different things in the world. So I always put down all the high schools, because I do think East is the best. But that was one of the reasons, right? It was diverse, and everyone was there. Diverse in every meaning of the word.
Exactly. So, and it still continues to do that.
Yeah, it's really diverse now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, you were in the mayor's office.
Yes.
Why would you go in the mayor's office and do that job? And growing up in Madison, why politics? Why work in the mayor's office?
Yeah, I think Madison has just been really good to me and my family. And it really has been, I would have never received any of these opportunities, right, if it were not for my family, friends, professionals out there really opening some doors for me. And I realized that there had to be a voice at the table, whether it be in the mayor's office or on the school board. And even in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement before I went to the mayor's office.
That's right. Now I can see you in the uniform. That's right. Now I can see that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I remember law enforcement I hated the way the Madison Police Department would come into our neighborhoods and treat us, right, a certain way with disrespect. And, I remember clearly how they treated my father when they would come into the neighborhood, or how they treated our black and brown neighbors, our Asian neighbors, right? It was really hard for me, and I really wanted to figure out how to make an impact around policing. And I decided to do it internally, right? You can do it from the outside, or you could do it internally. And so I spent some time within law enforcement working for the Madison Police Department. It was a great career. I loved it. Really got to know the city really well, but I really,
side of the city too.
Yeah. But really understood the complexity around the relationship between law enforcement and our communities of color, and that is really one of my, decisions in moving into the mayor's office, was because I was going to be able to make some big decisions. And around policy decisions within the mayor's office, and really push the Madison Police Department further along, rather than where I was within the police department at that time.
You being a person of color, do you think that weighed more in your decisions, or you being a Madisonian, right? Because you don't find people of power, influence here who are Madisonians, who actually grew up here, went through the schools, and actually are part of in leadership. There's not a lot of us who are doing that. So which one kind of weighed more, you think, in your decision making, or was it both?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. Definitely as being a woman of color, right, in this city, and how and those lived experiences brings me to those situations and table, and education, right? I think when in the mayor's office and traveling across the country, like you said, meeting with mayors and staff across the country, all of them were very focused on building strong public schools and understanding that was the foundation of a vibrant city. And education for me, was very personally important. And growing up here as a Madisonian, right, and understanding those complexities as a person of color, and then also being here and living here in the city, and wanted to make an impact. And at that time, I felt that we didn't have a strong voice of people of color who live here, who have those experiences on the board. And so that's why I ran.
For school board.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back before we get to school board. So you grew up in Madison, you're a police officer, you go to the mayor's office. that gives you intimacy with the city that most people would never have. Like, you know Madison in different ways that no one ever, even, like, I'm from here, but I never was a police officer, so I've never seen that side of the city. What are, like, the top 2 or 3 things that you learned about the city that you're like, we really need to fix this stuff? Like, being a police officer, growing up here, and working in the mayor's office, besides education, what would be the other things?
So I think that, I think public safety and education are the 2 critical areas of a vibrant city, right? And that's what I learned in the mayor's office. And I brought that public safety perspective. And I learned that public safety is just not a law enforcement's role, right? It is fixing and understanding how poverty and education plays a role in safe cities. And I think that that's what I learned. I think anytime you think about public safety, you think about a police response. But I'm really committed and have been committed to recognizing that it's a community, it's a thriving community, a community that understands how to serve their own community. And that is what public safety is, right? We don't need to continue to rely on law enforcement to solve all of our issues. We are a moment in time where we have the opportunity to really invest in mental health resources, invest in our own community for public safety. And that's what I learned in the mayor's office, and education, right? I just mentioned education. But I think from my experience in law enforcement, I recognize that we are just putting a Band-Aid, right, on the problem when law enforcement responds. And to sustain and have long-term impact is we really need to build the capacity within our own communities.
So then you decide to go on the school board, which, that's a tough job. You can never make anyone happy being on the school board. You're dealing with people's kids.
Yeah.
The good side, though, is you're dealing with people's kids. I believe that the health of our children can tell you where the health of the city, right? I really do. And our schools aren't doing well.
Yeah.
Some school that you grew up with going to are not doing well.
Yeah.
And you were a police officer. So I know, where are you at with being a police officer in schools? Like, I know there's a big issue.
Oh, police officers in schools.
Yeah, you have a unique perspective.
Yeah.
So where did you land on that?
So I think I'm very. I think I bring a balanced approach to the problem, and that is, or not the problem, it's just the challenge, right? It is, for me, when we went to school, we didn't have officers in schools.
No.
Right?
No.
But what did we have?
We had a strong presence of, like, leadership in the schools, right? I mean, like, very strong presence, right?
When I got into a fight, I know Mr. Pike would, he had my parents' number. He was,
that's true.
Strong leaders within our schools, right? And so as we progressed, before I became in law enforcement, in bringing SROs in our schools, right? It was a different time, and it was particularly very intentional in their use, right? To be there, they were educational resource officers, right? They went into our classrooms, educated our students about safety and really in a community role. I think that changed over the years, and the reason why that changed is because we didn't have these strong policies and parameters around how we use officers in schools. And it really, as you look at our schools, it replicates the community, right? It mirrors the community. And so when we move to a point of calling law enforcement for every issue in our community or in our schools, that becomes an issue, right? Because then we start relying on law enforcement to solve all of our issues. And we don't have any policies or parameters around how we use them. And so there was a time when we didn't have these strict policies and a strict contract in how we used them. And so then you start seeing over the years our arrest rates go up, right? Then you get to the school to prison pipeline. Right. And where I'm at is that, okay, in order to go backwards, we can't just, snap our finger and say, okay, officers out of our schools, because that's not the solution, right? The solution is to get back, focus on our teachers and supporting our teachers and our staff and our leaders within our schools to figure out how they will deal with behavior in schools, so that they don't have to rely on law enforcement. And so where I'm at is I strongly believe at this point in time, we need officers in schools. Now, in the future, would I want to see officers out of our schools? Definitely, right? I do want to see ourselves there. But what I don't want to do is take them out. We haven't really established a culture.
Yeah, culture change, how to deal with those issues.
In a process of how we build the tools and the capacity for our teachers and our staff to
and you
deal.
need leadership who can deal with that, right? I mean,
and leadership.
Like McPike, he could deal with something like that.
Right.
You know, I actually think about this issue sometimes as me. I was a fighter back in the day. Just something, it's hard for you to believe. And so I think about the fights I used to get in high school.
Yeah.
If a police officer was there, I probably would have been locked up. I mean, like,
yeah, me too.
Right?
Right.
And something, and just being a kid doing dumb things, like, there's always that challenge of, okay, are we arresting kids who are just doing typical high school stuff? The police officer escalates it. On the flip side, I can say, hey, look, there's some schools have changed. There's more issues going to schools now, right? We have different people coming with different issues now in the schools, mental health issues, etc.
Yeah.
And those things escalate for them faster, and how do you deal with it? So it's a balance. But I can totally see, like, if I was a kid now in high school, even the kid I was back then, and I was fighting, like, I mean, I would have been in trouble.
Right. I mean, I think we are dealing with generations of trauma here.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think that, and it goes back to our time. Right, but when you have generations and generations of trauma, particularly with people of color, families of color who are losing jobs, right? I mean, you see that all the time of what's happened in Milwaukee and Chicago, and you have the head of a household, the father losing a job, and what that does to a family, and it's generational, right? So now we are today in 2020, right, and so I think that we have to, and for me, it was, I think, living in poverty and experiencing my own trauma, right? It is my reason of why I behaved like that in school, right? And it took strong leaders and people to really set me aside and send me in a different direction.
Yeah.
And, but we are dealing with generational trauma, and it's not a simple solution.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's nuanced,
Right.
and I get that. Again, I wouldn't want to be in the school board.
Yeah, right.
God bless you for doing it. I wouldn't do it, no way. Yeah. So you are on the school board.
Right.
You decided to make that jump and to serve. So your whole career has been about serving.
Yeah.
That's consistent. And we've gone through when Jen was there, and especially all our kids of color are not doing well. Even if I think you break down the data for Native Americans and Asians, like, they're not even doing well. Like, look at the data. But black kids, historically for 30 years, right, have not done well. Longer than that, probably, in our schools. How do you start dealing with that stuff? I mean, I know we rolled out Black Excellence, and really trying to really focus on the black population, help them exceed and achieve and thrive. How do we deal with that from a school board perspective? What are some of the things you can do to address that population, the challenges from that perspective?
Yeah, I think what I've learned from my experience in the mayor's office and now in the school board is that the budget is everything, right? I think if we can say Black Excellence, right, but if the money is not behind it, and we are not making these decisions that are very intentional based on a racial equity lens, we'll never get to Black Excellence. We need to intentionally focus on our Black and brown kids. Our students of color in a very intentional way, right? It is, I think that's so important, and I think the school board is in a position, and we are moving in that direction, right? That is where, and something about this city, right, where I have observed, right, where we call out racial inequities, but when it comes to budget decisions, it doesn't match. And
that's Madison, though.
That's Madison, right? But that's why we are where we are.
Right, yeah, for sure.
It is about who are we going to provide funding to help support this effort, right? Black Excellence. And so I'm really working with the board and the administration to really look at how we budget around this issue, right? That has to be priority. We can't just say Black excellence without that. And then I think we have to develop a pathway of how we're going to get there for people to see, right? How do we get Black excellence? What is it?
Define it more for people to understand. Transparency.
And develop a pathway and develop, assessments around it, right? Is what we're doing working? And I think the board is in a good position to do that moving forward.
Now I can hear right now. I can hear Juan Lopez in my ears right now, just yelling at me. Well, yelling, right? I can just hear him. What about the Latino community? What about the Latino community? What about? So I mean, we don't have anything that says brown excellence or Asian excellence because we have a big Hmong population, right? Like we don't have anything like that, and we know that. I mean, the Latino community is doing a little bit better, but I mean, it's still. It should be a state of emergency for everyone how kids are doing. Do we have a plan for them too?
So I think we have to really, it's not about dividing our community. We cannot, right? We have to I recognize the value of Black excellence and our focus around that. Because we have to, right?
Well,
we have Black people.
It's been historically ingrained in the culture.
Right.
For,
historically in this country. With racism and what's happened, right? I mean, we have to really focus on that of Black excellence and our students,
right?
And there is no doubt about that. And I tell students that all the time, our Latino students, other students, I tell them, but that does not mean that we're forgetting them, right? When they do better, we all do better, right? And so I think that is really the message that we have to stay on track for. We can't use Black excellence or other area of
as an
focus
excuse to forget about one group.
It is. I don't see that as dividing us. I see that actually when we raise up a population of people along with us, we raise up everybody. And Latino students are in a different place, right? They have different, very specific challenges that we have to focus on, and we are, right. It's not forgetting them. It is. But for years, historically, our Black community, our Black students have suffered because of racism in this country and in this city. And we have to find ways of mechanisms to lift them up.
Yeah. So now we have Jen leaves.
Yes.
And she goes to Boston.
Yes.
To teach. And we have a whole new school board now.
Yeah.
And then you have 3 candidates, final candidates, right?
Yes. Yep.
And we have 2 are Black, and we have 1 Latino gentleman. And the 2 Blacks don't get the job at a time where we have some of the highest disparities for Black folks in the country. That had to be a tough decision when you guys went through that process. So how did you guys get from looking at all disparities, all the numbers, historical, all that stuff, for those 3 candidates to get to the one you landed on?
Yeah. I mean, it was a really tough choice. In my opinion, all the candidates were great, right? I mean, they were all great, and we could only pick one.
And for transparency, I didn't hear any of them, so I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, they were all great. I mean, despite what people are saying about backgrounds or what's happened in their jurisdictions, we acknowledge when you have a Black and brown person in a leadership role, right, that you are going to be attacked in many different ways. Right.
Almost always.
And so we recognize that. So that was not, for us, an elimination factor, right? It is, so it was a very tough decision. But what I can say is that this process was the most transparent process in history of MMSD. In history, I think, hiring any leader in this city, right? Because we spent a lot of time in our community engagement efforts in really developing that leadership profile of who we were looking for, and we did our focus groups throughout the city with those 3 candidates, visiting schools, meeting with students, the forums in the evenings, meeting with our Black and brown leaders, and we were getting input from everybody. And based on the input that we were receiving throughout the city of Madison, where the school board laid, we know that we chose the right person for this, our next superintendent. That was Dr. Matthew Gutierrez.
So for the black leaders now who are the black community is concerned, for real reasons, historical reasons that our communities tend to get slighted and thrown away or forgotten about. Who might say, "Hey, look, we had 3 candidates, 2 were black, and neither one of them got the job." In a city that, like I said, our black kids are not doing well. What would you say to them to give them confidence that this is the best for everyone, and that the focus and the attention and urgency will still be put on the black community to help them thrive? Yeah,
I mean, I think we have a very strong board, a very diverse board that will continue our focus on black excellence. And Dr. Matthew Gutierrez said over and over again throughout the whole process that is one of his, that will continue to be one of his priorities. And I'm confident, based on Dr. Gutierrez's experience in Texas and what he's done there, his focus is on collaboration, partnering with our community, and it's going to be a really great opportunity for our black community to hold the board and the superintendent accountable each step of the way to make sure that we continue our strategic vision around black excellence.
As a young girl growing up, did you ever see yourself becoming a school board president?
No.
Like you're the school board president leading the Madison School District. Did you ever see that? Did you ever see the vision?
I never saw that.
No.
I never saw that coming.
That's awesome, all right? Northsider. And then 2, being a Latina, did you ever think that you see a Latino superintendent and a president of the board of the Madison School District be 2 brown people? Did you ever think that would... Think about that.
No, I never.
Just stop to think about that historically. Like, did you ever think that would happen?
No, I actually didn't. I think that you always hope, right? You always think, but we have come a long way as a city, and we're not perfect. But you do have somebody who was elected on the school board, and not only me, but other members, right? Ananda, Ali, Savion, right? All people of color, all who grew up here, who went through our schools, who have kids in our schools, right? And who struggled, right? And so I think that, did I see that? No. And then to hire our first superintendent of color, it feels really good. And just because he's Latino does not mean that our focus is going to be even less, right, around our efforts around black excellence in our students.
Yeah, sure.
It's not.
I absolutely get that. But you do have to understand that.
I do understand.
That, I think from a positive perspective, from the Latino community, you actually have real leadership and real power now, and that has to... Because, from what I've heard from a lot of Latino friends is that, it's always talking about black folks and it's always about the black community. Well, this time things have kind of flipped, and now you have leadership who come from that culture, who are now leading.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be empowering, right? I mean, you would think it would be empowering, like for the little kids who are growing up seeing this.
Oh, definitely.
Right? I mean,
definitely. No doubt about that. I think it is an amazing... it's going to be an amazing experience for our Latino kids to see, a Latino in a superintendent role. There's no doubt about that. But it's also even more impactful when you have our black students, right, who see. When Gutierrez met with our students, he was the most popular amongst our students. And they were all black. Most of them were all black. Maybe we had 1 or 2 Latinos. But our black students love Dr. Gutierrez, right? I mean, he really made a strong impression. And so that does not mean, right, that we forget about our black, white, Asian students. But it does feel good.
Yeah, it should.
And but I don't really see that as, I don't see myself in a power position where I'm only going to advocate for brown kids and Latinos, right? it is about who do we need to lift up, and my focus has always been around Black excellence and around our children of color in general. Right?
When does he start?
June. He'll start in June. He'll be here for a visit in March. Okay. I believe so. Well, hey, not very long.
You're always welcome on the show. I would love to meet you. Yeah. I don't know anything about you. I'm hearing a lot about you. Anytime you want to come on and come on a real talk show, have a real conversation.
No, we're really excited to have him on board, and I'm hoping that our community will come together to support.
Well, I don't think we have any other choice.
Yeah.
I mean, he got the job, and we have a lot of issues that we have to deal with right away.
Yes, we do.
So infighting, I mean, that just doesn't work at this point in time. Our kids need help.
Yes.
Our kids are drowning in our schools. And you don't have to believe me. Just go to the schools and spend some time in the schools. You will see the challenges. I mean, the teachers are just trying to swim to stay afloat. I mean, the teachers don't have the capacity.
Right.
So, but anyways, hey, you decided to be on the school board, so this is
so it's my fault, right?
So I'm gonna go home and sleep good at night.
Right.
That you to take all the pain.
Right. Exactly.
So you have a political action committee or something like that that you're also doing. So you can't stop working.
I can't stop working. Yes. Yeah. I think that once when I went through my campaign for school board, it was a whole new world. Like seriously, you think that someone who's grown up here, sort of knows the city somewhat well, being in the mayor's office, and it's a whole different world. Yeah. And it was not a world that I felt that was welcoming to people of color in running in the campaign world, right? And so after my win, my kitchen cabinet came together, and we debriefed about what went wrong.
Who was your kitchen cabinet? Who was that?
So it was Sal Carranza.
Okay.
Juan Lopez.
Of course.
Yeah.
Everyone's everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan Sternbach. I had Sarah Alvarado.
Oh.
I had Oscar Mireles. And then I had people helping me, right? Ananda, Ali. Were all helping me behind the sines, and
that's a pretty good kitchen cabinet.
It was a great group.
Sarah has like a group who are
John Gramling.
John Gramling.
John Gramling.
There would be no massive.
Mike Gramling was my treasurer.
Really?
Who jumped in? I asked him. People who I was calling to help me support, they were asking me, "Why do you want to run?" Why?
Yeah, he'd be
all these questions. He was just like
he would drill. Yeah.
He just jumped in.
To John Gramling, this is truth. There wouldn't be a Mass 365 without the work that John Gramling's done.
Yeah.
In this field, he is just how to do community journalism. He's like the guru of it. So without him, there wouldn't be no us. So shout out to John.
Yeah, I had Dan Guerra too, who really brought.
I haven't seen him forever.
Yeah, really unique perspective to him. I mean, he was great. Yeah.
So Sarah has a big. People are calling me every day. You need to get Sarah on the show. You need to get Sarah on the show. So she has a lot of love. I'm like, I don't even know her, but
Sarah Alvarado is amazing. She has connections. I'm telling you.
For sincerely, people have been calling her for the past 2 weeks. You need to get her on the show. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. I don't know.
And she was all over the city dropping off signs for me. One of the gaps that we found after the campaign was that. We really needed a political action group to help support other candidates of color, right? Building the capacity, knowing how, training people of color to be campaign managers, right? Training people how to run a campaign, how to canvass, so that way they can volunteer for candidates of color, right? And so really is building our own capacity around elections and campaign, and it's moved really quickly.
I love that because it's needed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, historically, when candidates of color have to run, they used to have to go to the Progressive Dane or, and the Democratic Party sort of played a little bit locally. But other than that, you're on your own. And a lot of times people of color don't necessarily fit all the way where the Progressive Dane is.
Yeah, I did not.
Right. So most don't, or so it's good to hear that you did that. It's so needed.
It's so needed. And, it's coming, it's like, people are coming out all over the place saying, I want to run. How do I learn? I want to help support. And it is really growing fast. So really proud of that work. And the same people who help in my campaign are part of Adelante.
Are you playing into the bigger politics, the presidential candidate stuff? Are you going to?
We have not. We're sticking with local races, but we have talked about growth. What does that look like? Is it Milwaukee? Is it other places?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Look at you! You're just trying to take over the world.
Right.
A Northsider. Just
Northsiders, right? We both are. You are too.
No, I can't have. I mean, I get it from my mama, I think. So, anything else going on for the school board that we should know about moving forward that, you're just going to wait for June to the new superintendent gets here?
Yeah, I think, a lot happening around the school district. I would love for you to bring in not only the Dr. Gutierrez when he starts, but then also Savion and Ali when the board starts talking about the referendum that will be most likely be on the November ballot. So and that I think Savion and Ali would be great to come on the show. And yeah, you
smiling, you like them too a lot.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
I don't know Savion. I don't know Savion really well. Ali, I've seen. Yeah, she's been on the show. I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe we did a radio show. She was on there one time, but we interviewed her once. No, when she was running.
Yeah, when she was running, yeah.
We interviewed her.
Yeah.
She did all.
She's amazing. I mean, and Savion is this young, African-American kid who just, was in an IEP growing up went to East High School. Right?
Did he?
Yeah, he went to East High School and very just sharp. Very sharp.
And he had an IEP.
IEP, yeah. Yeah, I think all of us at some point.
See what I'm saying?
On the school board had an IEP. We were.
That's a story. I hope Rob heard that. Right. That's the story of. Yeah. There's something in our school system, and it's so hard to put a finger on what it is.
Yeah.
But we have so many talented people come out to school system who survive it.
Yeah.
And then go on to do big things.
Yeah.
But what is it about the school that it doesn't bring the best out of us? And I don't. Part of it, I think, is culture, culture and our identity, and we kind of get lost in the debate of our identity in schools and culturally. But there has to be something else there deeper that.
Yeah.
I just haven't figured out what it is yet.
I think that it's the learning, right? It is surrounding developing a curriculum and a process, right, for students of color, right, in ways in which we understand. Mr. Scott's class, I remember,
great.
Right? I mean, he brought it home for us.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I did really well because everything we would talk about, if I brought him a math issue or, he would bring up topics that were relevant to what my understanding was.
Which leads us to, why aren't we at the school district having a really robust game plan to just recruit teachers of color? I mean, just put lots of money towards, say, hey, we're going to have part of our Black excellence or whatever is we're going to focus on from 2025 recruiting this many teachers of color into the school, because part of it's cultural relationships and how you can relate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised the schools just haven't done that.
Well, we have this Grow Your Own, right? Is really looking at our own staff within our school district and preparing them who are not teachers for teachers, right? And also students, right? And I think we have to invest more, but that's another, right? We have to invest within our budget on a program called Grow Your Own. And I think that is one way. And then also, we have university students who are in the School of Education who we lose because they go out to different, warmer cities. But how do we keep them, right? How do we work to keep them here?
Well, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I'll be at home, cheering you on. Go
I'll be calling you.
Go Northside. Right. But thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for coming on, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
And thank you for another episode of Real Talk. We'll see you next time.